Another wonderful winter wonderland out there today.
Yeah, I looked out, took the dog for a walk, came back in.
Yeah,
Dog
bit
saw
of,
his shadow, so
bit of a mix of everything: snow, bit of ice, rain.
yeah. You're
Council-
obviously driving.
Yeah,
Councillor Shipston, we are live now.
We are live. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. This is the Township for Southgate Committee of Adjustment hearing for February 25th. I will call this meeting to order exactly at 9 a.m. So my name is Martin Shipson. I'm the chairperson of the Committee of Adjustment, and I call the meeting to order at 9 a.m. The committee members include members of council. However, we sit at this table as the Committee of Adjustment and not as members of council. Our jurisdiction lies solely with matters of consents, minor variances, applications. The secretary of this committee is Holly Melnick. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variances and consents within the Township of Southgate and is held under the provisions of the Planning Act 1990. And this hearing will be in accordance with the Provincial Planning Act, the Municipal Act, and the Township of Southgate official plan. So may I please have a confirmation of the agenda? Moved by Brian, seconded by Jason. Any opposed? Seeing none, that will be carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? See some heads shaking and no hands. That means seeing none, I will remind the committee to declare any pecuniary interest, if any should arise during the course of this meeting. Which brings us to the adoption of the minutes. Can I get approval of the minutes from the previous meeting? Moved by Joan. And seconded by Jim. Any opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Well, the hearing today, I will ask that anyone speaking about an application to state their full name and address for the record. And please keep all remarks relevant to the consent or minor variance application before us, as the Committee of Adjustment has no jurisdiction on any other matters. Any material submitted to the committee for viewing will remain the property of the Committee of Adjustment and will be available for public viewing in the application file and may be placed online. So if there are any questions or remarks, please direct them to myself, being the chairperson. This will enable the hearing to be conducted in an organized manner. So today there's only one file on the docket, as they say, A14-25. Joshua, apologies, I might get this wrong, Joshua Chase, concession 12, part lot 19, geographic township of Proton, township of Southgate. The purpose of the application is to permit a construction of a future additional residential unit that will have more floor area than the new home to be constructed first on the property. Section 5.24.2 is approved in zoning bylaw amendment 2025-009 to allow additional residential units with a floor area less than the primary or main dwelling. And the effect of this application is that once the first home is constructed fronting on Christie Street, a future additional residential unit can be built on the same lot with floor area greater than the primary main dwelling. And the location of this subject land, civic address, is 115 Christie Street. Legal description, as mentioned, concession 12, part lot 19, geographic township of Proton, township of Southgate. Is there a request for deferral or withdrawal of this application?
Thank you, Chair Shipston, and none have been received at the township.
Thank you, Holly. And so may I please have clarification that the appropriate sign was posted?
Thank you. I can confirm that proper notice was given and the sign was posted in accordance with the Planning Act.
Great, thank you. So I see Victoria on the line. I'll now ask Victoria to review all comments received and present your report. The floor is yours.
Perfect. Good morning, everybody. Again, to summarize, the applicant's proposing a one-story, 140 square meter primary dwelling on the southwest corner of the subject lands. It was also previously noted that it was within the environmental protection zone, but SVCA has provided updated comments and it's no longer within the EP zone. But under section 2.10 of the zoning bylaw, the boundary can be reinterpreted by the Conservation Authority under their discretion. Otherwise, the primary dwelling meets all other R6 or residential type 6 zone requirements in the zoning bylaw. In the future, the applicant is proposing to build a two-story, about 325 square meter additional residential unit, where current ARU rules allow only a one-story maximum unless above a garage, with a less floor area than the primary dwelling. So minor variances would be required to allow the two-story ARU larger than the primary dwelling. The ARU would meet the remaining provisions of the R6 zone as well. With some conditions, the proposed variances could be considered minor, desirable for the appropriate development, and maintains the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw as well. So again, they would like to construct a one-story, 140 square meter primary dwelling. And then the 325 square meter ARU in the future, would be located about 32 meters from the west of Christie Street lot line, and then 30 plus meters from the south lot line. The primary dwelling and the ARU are shown on attachment 1 in the site plan submitted as well. So the applicant is proposing a building phase over 5 to 7 years. They'd like to live in the primary dwelling before and then build the ARU. So the variance would be required to build the two-story ARU in height and have more floor area than the primary dwelling. So to provide some context, the lands are currently vacant. There is an existing entrance along Christie Street. They have about 198 meters along Christie Street and then 210 meters along the south side of Grey Road 9. It's about 4 hectares in lot area. There is also a drainage course along the east lot line of the lands. Much of the site is also tree and bush covered. And then the EP zone boundary, as mentioned, has been updated by the SVCA. Those comments are available online as well for review. They've provided a map of the delineated EP boundary. And it's within a cluster of R6 zone properties as well, south of Great Road 9, across from the Township Municipal Office. And the R6 block has frontage onto Christie Street and Southgate Side Road 13 to the west. So around the R6 zone block, there are several 40-hectare farm lots as well with associated farm clusters, and then some woodlands, which are zone EP, are also contained to the eastern portion of the site and continue to the neighboring lots to the south as well. Just to summarize some comments, those are on page 3 of staff's report. So Township Public Works advised that safe access can be provided and civic signage will be required to be posted, which should meet the Grey County Civic Address Manual on multiple structures. Historic Saugeen Métis had no concerns with the proposed. And then, as mentioned, some comments were received after the writing of this report. So just to provide some updates. Grey County staff advised that a formal policy or planning policy review has not been undertaken, which is common now for their staff. So, but they've indicated that county ecology, county transportation staff have no concerns where the proposed structures are located more than 75 feet from the center line of the county road as well. And then, as mentioned, SVCA recommends that the EP zone be revised to coincide with their mapping. And then the development will be within the SVCA approximate screening area as well. So they will require a permit from SVCA. And to summarize, staff assessed this proposed application and minor variance through the 4 tests, maintains the intent and purpose of the township official plan and the zoning bylaw based on the following. Maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan as the ARU is permitted in the rural designation, where appropriate servicing is available, private servicing. As well, the precise location of the hazard lands is set in the zoning bylaws per section 5.5.3. And comments from SVCA show the EP zone delineated from the proposed development as well. It maintains its intent and purpose, general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaws. The ARU meets all remaining provisions under section 5.24.1 and 5.24.2. The proposed primary dwelling also meets minimum building setbacks in the R6 zone. Staff feels also minor as the proposal meets the remaining regulations in the R6 zone and would not impact sight lines for traffic entering and exiting Christie Street. The ARU addition will also be screened from the street by existing tree cover. The building locations are also compatible with the surrounding area, and including several homes that are also within the SVC screening area. And lastly, it's desirable for the appropriate development of the lands in that the ARU requires minimal tree removal and is in an area of scrub tree cover as well. And building a two-story ARU larger than the primary dwelling would have no adverse impact on nearby homes or the EP zone area, which has now been updated by the SVCA. Happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions from members right now? Brian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Victoria, can you remind me as to why we wouldn't or why a two-story building is a variant as opposed to a single story in an
Sure.
ARU, please?
Yeah, through you, it's based on section 5.241 and point 2 of the zoning bylaw, where we only permit one story for ARUs, just to restrict the size and have it where the primary dwelling is the main purpose for living, where the ARU is an accessory building or not supposed to be the primary dwelling. So we do allow two-story in that it would be above a garage, but if it's a detached structure, it should remain one story.
And obviously this is going to be a two-story, so I'm wondering why we only, in normal course of action, why we only allow one story. Because I mean, it strikes me as, I guess, you know, what's minor and what isn't minor is in the eye of the beholder, I suppose. But if you're doubling the height of a building, in my mind, is not minor. So I'm just trying to get at what was the purpose of restricting it to one story in the past?
I think, sorry, Ken might have some clarification on that.
Yep, Ken, go ahead. I saw your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Apologies. I think I actually sent the clap emoji, so that wasn't
Yeah, I
an
saw it
applause,
there.
but it got the point across. So one of the reasons, through you, Mr. Chairman, that we limited the height of structures for ARUs was concern about overlooking and privacy when it comes to ARUs. Now, I realize that kind of creates a bit of a conflict when you think about putting an ARU above a garage. However, you know, with ARUs being above a garage, we also added in setback requirements. So that was meant to offset that. But the principal idea was that if you were going to create a detached structure not above a garage, then you need to be mindful of how it's placed in relationship to your neighbors so that you're not creating or that you're trying to minimize as best as you can any conflicts with window placement and creating potential privacy concerns. In other jurisdictions where you might have more power through a permitting process, these types of developments are often what some planners call discretionary. And so through the permitting process, you have a lot more ability to have influence in, you know, window placement and things like that. Whereas here in Ontario, we don't, unless we actually built it into the rules, and we didn't want to get down to that fine grain situation of designing these ARUs, because not every situation is going to, we couldn't possibly contemplate every situation. Hope that answers your question.
So if I might, Mr. Chair, so just so I understand, the rule is put in place thinking about ARUs in an urban context where people are a lot closer together. Whereas in the rural area like this one, obviously you're not going to be overlooking somebody's backyard, at least not in the foreseeable future, I wouldn't think. So it's not a concern here. Is that what I'm hearing in layman's terms?
Through the chair, the rules are basically general for all contexts, but it was basically around this idea that the smaller the parcel that you have, then the more potential concerns you might have of privacy. So you are correct that in an urban context with the smaller parcel sizes, then there's more potential. Whereas in a rural area, you have a much larger sized parcel. So it may be a situation where it can be seen to be minor.
Roger that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Ken, because that's one question I had. Obviously, totally different looking at the site plan and the size of this property, but you're right with the privacy and even shadowing that the height requirements and stuff. So,
Mr.
Steve,
Chairman, I did see Bill popped
I-
on very quickly, but he's since turned off. So maybe
no, he's back there. I was going to ask Bill if you had any other comments of that.
any words of
actually-
wisdom.
No, actually, I think you ended up hitting on what my point was, that just reminding committee that the ones on municipal water and sewer are mandated by the province.
Yeah.
So the rules sort of started out of that, and then council made a choice as we went through this whether to allow them in the rural area. And there's only so many, as Ken said, in situations you can kind of anticipate. And whereas a 2-story ARU in this siting, in this situation, may not be an issue, or a bigger ARU for that matter, it would probably be an issue in some of the subdivisions down in Dundalk, especially the newer ones. So they sort of evolved that way, and we just couldn't anticipate every potential situation, I guess. And you're only allowed to regulate certain things too for the full service ones.
Very good. Thank you all.
Okay. Any other questions, Barb? Go ahead.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I too have concerns. Additional ARUs are as of right. We've permitted them in the rural setting. So if they had just said that they wanted to build a 2-story home with an ARU in the rear, 1 level, minor or secondary in size to the primary unit, they could have gone and gotten the SVCA permit as required. They would have been able to go ahead without any variance, is my first question, Mr. Chair.
That's open to Victoria, Bill, Ken.
Through you, how they've presented it so far, we had a conversation of phasing, and originally the 2-story was the primary dwelling and the smaller was the ARU, but they would like to live in the primary to begin. And sorry, to just clarify, the frontage is along Christie Street. So it would actually be a deficient front yard setback from Christie Street if they were to build the smaller unit first. So in this case, it's actually the ARU is set back further from the front lot line than the primary, but it's the variance that it needs to address the oversized gross floor area and height. So I don't know if that helps clarify your question, where it's the if it was flipped, it would still require a variance to meet that front yard setback.
Okay, so because they want to build the bungalow, if we just, rather than calling it a primary or ARU, they want to build the smaller unit, and it would need a minor variance because it doesn't have the frontage setback from Christie Street.
Correct. Yeah. If that was considered the ARU instead of the primary as it is now, it would require a minor variance to address the deficient front yard setback.
Okay. And it would be, the smaller unit would eventually be in the rear of the larger unit. I have issue with regardless of which way you place it for entrance, the smaller unit will eventually become the secondary dwelling, and the owners will move from the primary bungalow eventually into the 2-story secondary. If they were just to say that they wanted to temporarily live in the bungalow, while they build without any time limit on building the primary residence. And then once they move into the primary or the two-story building, call the bungalow the ARU, would we even be here? Other than for the minor variance setback of the bungalow. Because I really, the exceptions that the staff are working with them to put forward is that an ARU is supposed to be in the rear or set back from, not in front of the primary residence. It's supposed to be secondary in size, and they're proposing the ARU to be almost 2.5 times the size of the bungalow. And it's going to be in front. I think there might be a way for them to, because they're going to be living in the ARU as opposed to living in the primary residence. And I still struggle with why they are being put through all of this.
Am I able to speak?
Yes, Joshua, go ahead. We were getting to that point for the applicants in attendance. Let me just say, is there any other questions? Joshua, if we could have Bill, he had his hand up. And if you don't mind, Joshua, we'll go through Bill, and then I'll ask for any other members if there's any other questions, and they will go directly to you. And I see Amy from Balan Engineering, is it? She is there as well. So if we don't mind doing it that way, Joshua. So, Bill?
I'll be really quick, and I appreciate what Deputy Mayor DeBruin is saying. There is a scenario in which you could do this without needing a variance, but there's a few complicating factors on this: the hazard location and the 2 frontages, and the applicant's timing. In other words, if they're going to take 5 to 7 years to build a home, how do we best get them to that point, given the design that they've done? And they'll probably tell you a lot about the design that they've thought of. So to some degree, it's very unusual, the application. And so how we've worded it in the notice makes it it was difficult to word it in a way that explained what was going on. And you're right, there could be a scenario where they don't need a variance. So then what is the impact of what's being done is where we ended up talking about as a staff. In other words, if they do it exactly as they say, you'll have an ARU in the front that's smaller, and the only issue would then be it's in the front. So then if an ARU is in the front in a rural setting, what is the impact of that on that whole area? And those houses, we looked at where they are sitting, and they're kind of in different spots on the lots. So we just couldn't see any impact from doing it the way they're proposing. We were trying to think of what adverse effect could be on the township or on the lands or on the neighbors, and we just couldn't find one. So yes, it's unusual to the degree that committee may have issues with it. It's probably because of the way we wrote it, but you could have written it with the primary being the front one, or the primary being the big one that they're going to build, and the secondary one being the smaller one in the front yard. So to some degree, we've contributed to that. But at the end of the day, you'll end up with 2 houses, one bigger, one smaller. And we can't find a real impact in this particular location for doing it that way. Yeah. I don't know whether that helped or not, but.
Okay, Bill, thank you. Yeah, this obviously wouldn't fly in an urban setting, or settlement area for sure. So Barb, go ahead.
We have actually done this in Dundalk, where we allowed for a family to live in, they built the garage and the loft as the ARU, and were given permission to temporarily reside in the loft, the ARU, while they built their new home, their replacement home. So I just don't understand, and it may not have that much impact on it or any impact on, I get that it's out in the rural area. I just find that we could have and explain why we couldn't have simply said reside in the future ARU while you are constructing your new home. And so that's where I'm struggling with, you know, forcing them to go through all these exceptions. Thank you.
Ken? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The one thing I would just advise committee is to remember that we're not the owners of the application, it's the applicant. And so we're here to provide advice, and we provide the best advice we can, but the application that's before you is because of decisions that the applicant has made for whatever reason. They are here to explain that. So I would defer to them to explain their choice to go down this path.
Okay. With that being said, thank you, Ken. Are there any questions from members? I think Joshua's been quite patient here. Same with Amy. Seeing none, Joshua, I will give it up to you, and then you and Amy can chat between each other. I don't really, doesn't make any difference to me, but Joshua, go ahead.
Amy, did you want to chime in first before I get in?
Sure. Why don't I go through the process, and then if I'm missing anything, you can kind of speak on anything that I've missed. So originally the application was that when we presented it was exactly kind of what Barbara has mentioned, was to live in the ARU while the primary was being built. When we put forth the application, then it was with the areas of the ARU and that sort of stuff. It was advised us that the application should be reversed, that we'll call the ARU the primary and the oversized ARU that would be the best case for the minor variance. So originally the route was exactly kind of what Barbara said, but now we come here. So we're just looking to get both of these built. My client here, Joshua, he's not from this area, so he would like to move there as much as possible to then be able to build the bigger structure so that he is in the town and on site. I think originally in the notes too, they suggested about 2 years to build the primary. For financial and just kind of construction timelines, we were looking to within 5 to 7 years for that second oversized ARU that we are now labeling it. But essentially, yes, the two houses, once the smaller bungalow style is built, Joshua and his family will be moving into the larger oversized ARU, and then the primary, which is the smaller, will be used for a family member.
Yeah,
Okay, Amy, thank you.
And that's essentially it. The goal was to build the granny flat first, so that way we could get on site, so that way I'm not traveling as frequently. And the goal is to build both, so that way the granny flat could be used for an elderly member of the family or to rent out in the future if that ever came to be. But yes, originally the larger one that's up the front is the primary unit, and we were just advised that we had to label it the other way around. It was the same way how we've been getting various, not mixed messages, but various confusion on the matter, because it's like I put in a build permit to say, hey, can I put an actual storage unit on site so I can put building materials there for safe storage? And I was told, no, you need to have a main unit before you can have an ADU. And I think that's part of where the terminology came, that you can't have an ADU before you have a main unit. And so even though we wanted to label it, as Barbara mentioned, the big primary one as the main unit and then the small granny flat as the ADU, we were advised, no, you can't have a main unit. You can't have an ADU before a main unit. And so I just don't know if it's just too restrictive with like the terminology and not just understanding, I just want to build 2 houses within the next 5 to 7 years, one for an elderly family member, and to be able to live on site so I can better manage subcontractors while working from home.
Mhm. That makes sense, Joshua. Any questions from Amy? Do you have anything else?
No, I think he summed it up well, and if there's any questions that the committee has for us, we're happy to answer any.
Okay. I'm not seeing any hands up. The one
Hand is
prerequisite,
up, Mr. Chair.
pardon? Go, Barb, go
Your
ahead,
hand
sorry.
is up, Mr. Chair.
I have everybody on the screen. Go ahead.
Thank you. So thank you, Mr. Chase, and I totally get it, and we would love to have you in our community. I too have had my husband lived in a cabin that was grandfathered while the house was being built so that he could be on site for contractors. So I totally get why you need somewhere to reside, and it's unfortunate that historically, drive sheds or, garages or something, houses could be built to accommodate your equipment and a living quarter and then convert, but you want the ARU to be accessible for elderly. So having a house wouldn't necessarily suit your needs. I still thank you for clarifying that that was your original intent. Is there anything through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, is there anything that the applicant is going to have to do once they move into the two-story dwelling to make that their primary residence? And does that have any impact implications for them?
I mean, I could try and answer that. I would say they don't have anything to do. That's why they would be doing the variance now. I would agree to just build that front house. Probably they didn't need a variance, but they want some assurances that they can build a bigger main unit later. So when they move over to the other one, they wouldn't, in my opinion, need anything from the municipality at that time. So that's where we ended up. Just what the applicant said is they just want the two homes. So this is the way to get it. They didn't have to apply for a variance now, but they wanted to because they want the assurances that they can move into that bigger dwelling later. And I think the staff have made a recommendation that would allow that to happen. So yeah, I don't think there's anything they would need to do when other than get a building permit and comply with all the building code. That's all. So the other scenarios that were talked about, and the one that you referred to where people live in garages or you put a garage out and all that, that's old days when you didn't allow ARUs. May or may not be in the case of the one, but you used to have to put agreements with people that they built the home, the second home or the full home within 2 years, and you had securities to make them remove that if they didn't build it and all that stuff. And we're not suggesting that happen in this case.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Barb. Yeah, we've members here have seen many different files over the years, and we are told each one is separate. Each one is its own entity. And I'm pretty sure there's been some, not that it's really related to buildings, but we've had workshops and garages before the house and stuff like that. So the builder, Joshua, it might not be relevant, but one of the requirements is appropriate servicing. I'm looking at the site plan on page 61. I don't know if that's written in stone or it can be, but I'm looking at the proposed one story. There's a new well, and then with the bigger, twice the size, eventual house, there's the septic, and then there's a gigantic leach field. How are those two tied in? Because the well is right in the middle, and you can't have a well within a certain amount of feet
Of the leach field.
Yeah,
Correct?
of the leach
So,
field. Yeah. So
So the well cannot be within 100 feet of the leach field.
yeah.
And so I was going to be putting the actual septic tank in the front and in the bushes of the future main home. So yes, the actual piping, and I was going to be going well above code to ensure that I get any septic to about 110, 120 feet away from it to the tank in case there's any leaks or anything around the tank. Shouldn't be, but in that ever event, be handled there, and then out to the leach field. That's another 40, 50 feet away for where it starts. That way I'm technically 150 feet out of the 100 feet away from the actual well point itself,
Yeah.
which is 50% higher than building code.
Yeah.
requirements.
Okay. Well, I asked that question because as it says, I think Victoria mentioned it. It has to have the proper servicing, and it is in the country, so you've really gone overboard with that.
Yeah, my plan is that I'm going to be putting in a 10,000 liter septic tank, which is the max that you can do for residential. I'm going to be putting in the septic, the well, and the power, so the actual solar panels in the back, so that way I would have full service there.
Okay. Great.
And I
Thank you.
was advised by builders that they didn't like putting in the septic before the actual main house build because then you're driving heavy machinery over it.
Yep.
And so speaking with some of them is like, well, can we overbuild it so that way there's no concerns? And it's like, yeah, if you want to overbuild it, we'll overbuild it. So
Okay. Well, well thought out, just like all the other schematics and plans you've shown us.
thank you.
So there's obviously a lot of discussion about support of this. I don't see anybody online with any comments about speaking in opposition of this application. Just the R6, just to clarify for everybody, Victoria, that basically R6 is medium density, diverse compact or cluster types of housing. And that would perfectly fit into this acreage, definitely not in town. So is that basically R6 zoning? Is that
Three,
what
I
it
would
implies?
say so, yeah. And average clusters in the R6 about 4 hectares or above 2 hectares.
Okay, very good. Well, we'll get to the other point. Oh, Barb, go ahead.
One final comment, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
No worries.
The SVCA did respond that a permit will be required. So have you, Mr. Chase, contacted SVCA directly yet? The letter that was included in the file said that they are only responding to the municipality at this time.
Yeah, I can speak on that. So we received it from our office, and we wanted to wait until kind of we had the discussion here, whether it was approved or denied before we proceeded with going with the permit for them. But we did receive the letters from them, and we will be going for a permit as we are in that kind of screening area with them. But we have just held off until kind of the vote for the minor variance. Because as you can see, the back and forth, there is some understanding maybe it wasn't needed at this point, but we went for the variance at this point just for the reassurance that both units can be done and there is no hiccups down the road of doing the second. As you can see, the septic, we're putting in all the infrastructure for both units at the main time. So that is why we're going for the minor variance at this point. And on that we've just waited for the conservation until we get this approved, and then that'll be our next step to go for that permit and then the building permit as well.
That makes perfect sense, and I'm sure that once you contract your well contractor and they find out where the best place on the property to place the well, and then when you go to build your septic, they're not going to build the septic in below or within proximity. All of that will fall into place. So
yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we get into the voting, I had a question for Victoria yesterday, and Joshua, it is stated in the application 5 to 7 years for both buildings. I talked to Victoria yesterday and I asked, is there a statute of limitations that we put on this? And that is a decision, Victoria, correct me if I'm wrong, that we can make And we have said you have 2 years to do this. This is a big project. So is 7 years enough time without restricting you to 5?
7 years would cut me like pretty short because I'm going to be leveraging my brothers who have built things. One's a former military as a combat engineer, so doing some of the work with my actual brothers just for bonding and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I wanted to take my time with some of the things, and also to make sure that I wasn't pressured into going fast, because then you have to either cut corners or just try to get whatever help you can. And it's like, if I've been speaking with a couple builders, and just I want to make sure that I get the right resources to
Mhm.
do it correctly. And I have told everyone that I've worked with, building code is for me, that's a C or a D. I don't want to go bare minimum code. I want to be above and beyond. That's why if you look at the house, we are going, I've wanted to do, at least for both houses, I kind of want to go down the passive house green as much as I can, and just getting those kinds of things in place. So 5 years, like 2 years, like the way that I was looking at it, it's like, if I'm being told you have to start it in the second one in 2 years, and it's like, we're going to be like three quarters of the way through maybe the first build by that
Yeah.
point. And it's like, yeah, we could like start the building application process, but I'm not gonna break ground within 2 years on the second one.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, does it count if I've already started the septic for essentially the main, the larger unit, the ADU, ahead of time? And the biggest thing is, I just wanted the assurances that I wasn't gonna get the rug pulled out from under me, saying
okay.
that in 2 years or 3 or 4 years time, being like, no, technically your ADU must be a smaller square footage than your main unit, and because we had to, for whatever logistics reasons, change the terminology for the primary and the ADU, I didn't want to get the rug pulled out of me. And so I was very adamant with Balin Engineering that I will not proceed forward unless I have guarantees that I can build both houses.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I have to rethink my plans, or I'm just going to resell the land after a couple of years if I
Yeah.
do not have assurances.
Yeah. Well, that was just the point. Usually we do give 2 years with the other conditions, and there's nothing here for about that. And I agree with you, Joshua. I figured it was going to be quite a big project, passive house, and you have to get contractors that are willing to do that, because some contractors don't too. So I think 7 years is adequate, perhaps
Thank
not
you for
enough
being
even.
reasonable.
Yeah, no, and I think it's more than adequate. So I'll again ask committee members if there is any other questions. And I am not seeing any. So may I request a mover and a seconder to grant, refuse, or defer this application? Brian, you're granting?
I'll move that we grant.
Thank you, sir. And Jason, Jason, it was seconded.
Yeah.
All right. Be it resolved that staff report PL 2026-009 regarding minor variance file A14-25 for 115 Christie Street be received for information, and that committee consider approval for minor variance A14-25 to permit a future two-story additional residential unit with a gross floor area of plus or minus 325 square meters, where section 5.24.1 V of the township zoning bylaw only allow one-story additional residential units with a gross floor area less than the primary dwelling, and that this committee consider approval of the proposed minor variance subject to the applicant meeting conditions related to section 210 of the zoning bylaw for the primary dwelling to the satisfaction of the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority to delineate the boundary of the environmental protection zone and hazard land based on their assessment, and obtain any necessary approvals from the SVCA. So with that being said, we have a mover and a seconder. Is there anyone opposed to this application? I am seeing none. So the decision of this committee of adjustment is to grant the application. So there we go. Joshua, on the plans, it looks like an intriguing build. I would love to see it when it's all said and done. If I'm
Thank
around
you.
7 years. Well, thank you very much.
Hopefully we'll be around.
Yes,
All right. Thank you.
you're more than welcome. Thank you, Amy. And
Thank
thank you, members. I think that is it, the adjournment. Do I have a mover? And do I have a seconder? Oh, I should say the notice of decisions from today's meeting will be signed electronically by members and distributed accordingly per the Planning Act. And the committee decisions may be appealed pursuant to Section 17D of the Planning Act within 20 days of the date of the notice to the Ontario Land Tribunal. So again, motion to adjourn. Barb, seconded by Monica. Thank you. Hello there. And I don't see any opposition.